It's a test. So I've pushed out this budgeting tool to a couple of friends. I would say about 30 people. And I know with 2026 coming up, this is probably something you want to utilize. It's pretty vast, it's pretty deep. It's not a simple one. So I wanted to make sure I kind of give everyone a walkthrough on how to use it. Stick to the end. Obviously, like, share, subscribe if this is helpful. Let me know if you want this budgeting tool. I'm giving it out for free, to be honest. Um, and obviously down the line, I might do something with it here or there. But obviously, just to go through it, I put a legend over here on the side. This will tell you exactly what each color means. Um, Obviously, anything that's green, as you can tell right here, these are things that are coming out of your checking. And this will give you how much is coming out of your checking on the 1st and the 15th. Credit means anything you're paying with a credit card. Normally, any bills that isn't true debt, you could pay with a credit card, right? So anything that's not usually a mortgage, a car note, or student loans, anything of that sort, or any type of loan, really, you could pay with a credit card, right? Your Netflix, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously, anything on credit is going to be in yellow. Now in blue, that's paid on. So when it's paid, right? Light blue on the 1st and dark blue on the 15th. Now this is for the semi-monthly people, the people that get paid every 1st and the 15th, or however you want to look at it, on the 30th and the 15th, right? So which portion of your check is going to be affected by this, right? So which check is going to be affected by this? And then you have in red anything that's looked at as debt. This is normally things that will impact your debt to income ratio, right? So when you're looking to buy a house, normally they look for things that you have an obligation to pay month to month, thing that you can't cancel. Anything that's a subscription, a gas bill, a phone bill, those are cancelable, right? But a mortgage, you can't just cancel your mortgage without losing a home. You can't cancel a car note without losing your car. Student loan, same thing. Those are debt that you have to pay. So anything that's red, that's a debt. And then bill, that's anything gas, electric, anything that comes based on usage, right? Your gas, your electric, your phone bill, water, sewer, electric. This is where you have your Netflix subscription, your gym membership, et cetera, right? So I label them as subscription one, two, three, all the way down, right? So essentially, whatever those subscription titles are, you feel free to edit it. And then anything that what I wanted to make sure everybody knew is anything that is in gray has a formula in it. So you shouldn't touch it. Anything you enter in any box that isn't gray, you can edit any box that isn't gray, but anything that's in gray should not be touched because there is a formula tied to it, right? I should probably turn these things gray as well, just because of the simple fact that they pull from these numbers over here. So let's do that right now. So with that being said, we're gonna do a scenario where in this scenario, there's income number one, which is gonna be, just to keep it simple, we're gonna do mom income, dad income, and then let's say they have a side business, right? So that's what is going to be covered in income one, two, and three. And the side business could be anything from rental property to whatever it is that you decide to have a side business. Now, just to keep it on the budgeting tool itself, we're going to work from top down. Obviously, you're starting with an income, right? You need to know how much you make before you start taking out the debt and taking out the bills. So, income number one, we're just going to say that is the head of the household, whether it's the woman that makes most money or the man. We know we're in 2025 going into 2026. So let's say that person makes, to keep numbers around, $1,000 a week. Let's do $2,000 a week. Let's say they make $8,000 a month. What you're putting here is a monthly amount, right? And let's say the second person, instead of $2,000 a week, let's say they make 1,500 a week. So let's say they make $6,000 a month. Okay. So from here, let's say an income number three. This family has a rental property that's making them, let's say, just to keep numbers around $2,000 a month. Okay. So semi-monthly, they're making a total of 8,000, which is just bi-weekly. And then monthly, they're making 16,000, and that's a yearly income of $192,000. Now, over here is where you move on to the debt, right? Portion number two, debt slash bills. So with all that income, you obviously have money that has to come out. Let's say because they make such money, they've decided they are going to buy a house or have a mortgage or rent that's around $3,000 a month. Now, granted, all of these you can update these to help calculate your debt to income or whatever it might be, but you can keep them at zero, won't do anything. The most important part of this budgeting tool is your monthly, right? It's your income and then your monthly. So with that being said, they pay a $3,000 a month mortgage. Car note, because they have two cars. Instead of 500, we'll say that it's $1,000, right? Two cars total. Now, granted, if I was doing it myself, I would add a line item to have car note one and car note two. Okay. Now, let's say both of these individuals went to school and they're both paying back about 400 a month. So let's say 800 a month is their overall student loans, right? Now again, I would not keep it like this. I would turn probably two of these line items red and then do car note two and student loan two, right? So I normally do like mom, dad, but obviously to keep it simple, we're just gonna keep with how this looks, right? Electric gas bill, they have a pretty big house, so we're gonna say 500 there. Water sewage, we're just gonna say 400 there. Um, they have kids that are teenagers, so their phone bill will put at 300. The car insurance, because they have two pretty expensive cars that aren't paid off, we're just gonna say that their car note is $540. And then their internet, let's say they have pretty good internet, $200 there for internet. And then from there we have the Netflixes and such. We're not going to change any of the subscription, we're just going to say that they have them. Now with that being said, they have on a monthly basis they are spending $7,447.66. And if you look at the formula for that one, it is literally just summing up all of the monthly bills and expenses. Now, with that being said, what you have left over here is literally your monthly income, which is a 16,000 over here. That was added based on these, minus how much is being spent, and that'll give you your monthly leftover, which puts you at $8,552.34. Now, with that being said, your debt to income over here, the way we calculated it is how much your total income monthly is divided by your three reds, your debt, right? So you have about $4,800 in debt divided by 16,000. So right now your debt to income is 30%. Granted, like if we say, let's say he only makes 7,000, right? Your debt to income is gonna raise or go up. So with that being said, that's how that goes. It came out to 30% by luck, but it wasn't planned, obviously, as I'm walking through this. Now, your emergency fund, I always say you should have 3 months of your total expenses, right? So it's not just your rent, mortgage, car note, or student loans. I think if you can maintain all of these, your debt and bills for 3 months with your emergency fund, you are setting yourself up for success, right? Most people will say your emergency fund should just be your debt times three. But I say if you can maintain your lifestyle for 3 to 6 months with your emergency fund, you are setting yourself up for success, right? And that's the formula that's in there. Like I said, anything gray you don't have to worry about. As long as you input the colorful stuff correctly, you should be good. Now, while these have formulas, it's very important that if these are changed, like if you're changing this from the 1st or the 15th, that you update the formulas to reflect which line item it's going to be in. For example, right now, if you look at C7, right? Because C, the first is on the first, it's $3,000. So on the first, coming out of checking, so first, green. So on the first, and green is checking, you have $3,000, right? So we go to checking on the first, that's why you see C7. Now, if I change this to the 15th, I would remove C7 from here and put C7 right here because it would still be out of checking, but it would not be the 15th. That's how these are impacted right now. All of these numbers in here reflect what I have going on right here. So if anything is changed here, you just have to make sure that you update it here as well. Now, once you do that, you don't have to play with these formulas because they are just adding up all of this. One way to make sure that you did it right is if you check H28, it should match what you have going on at C25 because that is your total for your monthly spending, and this is your total for your monthly spending. What this does for you is it lets you know how much you're paying on a credit card and how much you're paying out of your checking account, right? This also does what this also does is it lets you know how much you're paying on the first versus how much you're paying on the 15th. Because if you make less, or if you're paying more on the first than you are on the 15th, you should probably be saving on the 15th for that first bill, right? So this is how you handle the top portion of this budget. Moving down, you have the cash flow. This is where the budgeting happens. This is where the projection happens, is the word I'm looking for, not just budgeting, because this is pretty much knowing where you stand in terms of cash flow. And over here is where you're going to direct what you're doing, right? So this is obviously your starting balance. Anything across the columns will show you your starting balance. This is going to be the cash flow. This is what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then this is your ending balance. So pretty easy to understand. You started here on the 15th. You cash flowed all of this during the 15th of December check. And this is where you're going to end. Now, as you could tell in the ending balance, everything is gray, which means that everything on the ending balance has a formula. So whatever you put up here in the white cells will then reflect the difference in how you will end on the gray cells. So with that being said, the 15th of December already passed. I'm just, oh yeah. So one of the things you want to do, the reason why I always say you might want to open this on a desktop is I have notes on here to help navigate this tool, right? So obviously this does not only tell you what's going on currently, it helps you project all the way to the end or the first pay period of 2027, right? So essentially the end of 2026. So with that being said, you have to understand how to enter those projections. Understanding that this tool is very, very detailed, right? So starting with the 15th of December, which just passed, let's say that this family had $10,000 in checking, $1,000 in savings. They had $10,000 saved in their high yield savings account. In their investment account, they have 20,000, 80,000 in a retirement account, and then in the total assets, as you can see, it's gray. All it is doing is totaling these rows out. Okay. So with that being said, you go into your liabilities, the things that you're paying for, right? Let's say they're carrying $9,000 in credit card debt. They have a car note that's $30,000, and they have student loans that's adding up to $50,000. Now, those numbers are just what was written up here, so we're just gonna put them back here. Just student loans, I think we said 50,000, and let's just say that their house was worth 500,000, but we won't have to worry about that at the bottom. So with that being said, this gives you a total number for your liabilities, right? The reason for that is you want to know where you stand in terms of equity. This is just a good number to tell you whether you have more assets and liabilities, or your liabilities are outweighing your assets, right? The goal is to get this to zero, and then obviously within the positives if you're starting from the negatives. The higher this number is, the better you stand. The reason why I don't have um, the mortgage on here is because I would say about 80% of the time, if you're doing things correctly, your mortgage should be less than how much your house is worth, right? So just to save you from those issues, in my personal one, I do have those details, but for this one, I decided not to add those type of details, just to keep it less complicated, as complicated as this is already, right? So from there, what you're doing, let's say it's the 15th of the month, right? This is a formula. This is just telling you how much is in the checking. Uh, and from here, this is the disbursements, right? So where we're spending this money. So on the 15th of the month, obviously a you don't have rent to pay. Rent is normally paid on the first of every month. Now, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go back, just to keep it simple, to $2,000 on the mortgage, just because that's the calculations that we have at the bottom. So with that being said, car note right now is 500. So we'll go back to that. Now that we 500, and student loans we said was 400 previously. Now that we know all the different movements that we have going on here, just to keep it simple. So let's say on the first of the or the 15th of the month is when the student loans are being paid. As you can tell over here, on the 15th of the month, that's that 400. Now, granted, remind yourself that you have to enter these manually, right? So as you go along, you want to make sure that you are making this budget fit what's actually going on in your life. Obviously, you want to take care of your finances, so that means that you want to make sure that you're putting time into this. This is not a 5-minute fix. This is going to be something that you're going to have to sit down and look at for at least 2 to 3 hours before the new year starts. That way, when you go into the new year, it's minor tweaks, right? I have the same exact budgeting tool, way more detailed. It takes me at least 6 hours of setting up my budget before um, I can start doing it on a paycheck by paycheck basis for 30 minutes at a time, right? And so this is going to have to be maintained. This is how you know what's going on with your money. So back to it, it's the 15th of the month. Now I'll put the dates both at the top of the starting balance and the ending balance, just so when you scroll, you can still know which day you're working with, right? So right here, no rent. Car note we said was on the first as well. So on the 15th, you got the student loans coming out. You're trying to pay down your credit card, so we're gonna put 4,000 there. Obviously, you're saving. My intent is always to save 10% of all income, right? So if this family is making $4,000 or $8,000 in on the 15th, this total between high yield savings account deposit and your investment account should total out to $800, right? You want to save $800 minimum, right? That's the 10% rule. That's my habit that I've created that I plan on keeping for the rest of my time here. And then from there, you have this will automatically calculate, right? So you have this, the starting amount, and how much you're moving. And then this tells you where you would end. And then based on the 350 that you're adding into this high yield saving, this is where you would be. And your emergency fund, 16,600. Let's see what it's showing up as here. Emergency fund. So there's a formula that just copies whatever numbers there is here. And this tells you how much you still need for your emergency fund. And obviously, once you hit that zero and once you're in a positive, it's no longer red. So right now it's showing you that you have a deficit when it comes to how much you should be saved. So you do have 10,000 saved, but this is why people that are financially savvy, even if they have a high number of dollars saved, they still say that they don't have money because they know that, hey, I do not have enough in my emergency fund to be spending, right? Or splurging. So with that being said, your ending balance total all is all based on what's going on here. Okay? So now what I want you to understand is these numbers are all entered based on payday. So you are not going to get to add these numbers up here. These are true balances on the day. So on the 15th of the month, what I do is I go into my checking account and I look at the balance. Let's say in my checking account there was $18,000. I will enter $18,000, right? And then the formulas will do its thing. Let's say in my savings account there's 1,000. I always keep $1,000 in my savings account. That is my overdraft protection. Let's say my high yield saving there was 20,000. I would enter my 20,000 here, down to the cent. You have to be in control of all of your money down to the cent. So with that being said, these are actual balances, and this is how you would enter it. And then from there, you're entering actual balances all across these fields outside of the gray lines. And over here, you entering actual transactions that will happen all across the field in the white line, right? On the day of. And then this will do the math for you. Now, how do you project with this tool? This is the question that I keep getting, right? Because all these numbers are estimated numbers, right? That I did just to simplify it. Now, this should be strictly based on how you decide to operate. The way I see it is your checking account should always be going up based on your income. And as you can tell, there's a formula here, right? This brings it back to F4. This is just to keep the math going. Whereas F4 tells you your semi-monthly income. So every formula after here adds what you're supposed to be making semi-monthly. Okay. Now on the day of, you will go in and insert the actual numbers. So with that being said, another thing that I say is you should always have at least $1,000, right? This is the notes that I'm talking about. Over here, I also have the note, add checking account balance on payday. High yield savings account. If you don't have one yet, open one before 2026. This should be a must. It is free and it is money you're leaving on the table if you're keeping money in this type of savings account, right? Investment account. I would say always have an investment account outside of your retirement account pre-tax, right? Outside of your 401k. Some people like Roth IRAs. I prefer Robinhood just because of the simple fact that, like I always say, my plan is to retire early, right? So with that being said, make sure that you are actually opening an investment account. Okay, and then your retirement account, this is your pre-tax account, your Roth IRA if you prefer those, if you plan on working till 65 or 60, whatever the age actually is for retirement. But this is your actual retirement accounts, right? For me, it's my work account. I have a TSP being in the Army, and I think I'm at 12% that I put in there with employer match. I think that's at 5 or 4%, whatever it might be, right? Not leaving any money on the table. Now, again, go through all these notes, they'll break it down for you, but to show you how I will project Keeping that at 1,000 over here. This is just showing you your ending balance, right? How much you've put in it last time. So if I go to this 350, instead of doing negative 350, let's say I decided to do negative 800, right? That will impact all of my future numbers to include the high yield saving and also to include how much is left on my checking, right? So with that being said, investment account, again, you're entering these are going to be the ending balance based on what you're doing in the movement, right? Credit card balance. The other thing I do over here is I put how much I plan on spending in a credit card um, after every during every pay period, right? Because I, like most people, prefer using my credit card over my debit card. It is safe. I can dispute charges if they happen, and it normally gets corrected pretty easily within a week, right? So with that being said, I'm also in the army. I get 0% interest, and then I still get all the perks that exist for credit cards. So with that being said, I use my credit card on a month-to-month basis. So with that being said, this is for those people. You see where there are formulas in here that kind of hint at what you're supposed to be doing. It says 2,000 across the board, but let's say on February 1st, I plan on taking a trip that's going to cost me an extra 2,000. I change this 2,000 to 4,000, and then now it is in my budget that I will be spending $4,000 on February 1st, right? Let's say same things happening March 1st, except this time we're going to need 5,000 for the family, so we still have that 2,000 original. We'll make it 7,000, right? And that is how you budget for the credit card. Card note, obviously nothing changes, and as you make payments, it goes down. You see, it's going down by 500 because you're paying $500 a month. So with that being said, student loans, same thing happens there, where it goes down based on when you make your payments, and it's by $400 a month. It is just following the last ending balance and when you're making the payments on the cash flow. Now, how do you budget for the cash flow? Same thing. You know that you're making your mortgage payment every first. So that means I will copy and paste my 2,000 and zeros across the whole year on the 1st and the 15th. For the car note, I know I'm doing $500 a month and it's on the 1st. So I will copy and paste my 500 on the 1st of every month for the rest of the year. Student loans, I don't got to repeat myself. Same thing for the 400s on the 15th of every month. I copy and paste my 400. Credit card payment will be strictly based on what you want your checking account to end at, right? You never want to have less money than what is needed for the next pay period in your checking account. So with that being said, the checking account is one of the things that can vary. High yield savings and investment account, like I always say, when it comes to paying yourself, you always pay yourself first. So have a plan every check that I would say 600 should be here, not 800. So negative 600, just because this person makes 8,000, right? Every pay period. So with that being said, 10% of all your income between your high yield savings and your investment should be at a minimum 10%. You got to pay yourself as if you're an important bill, as if you're a debt. You have a debt to yourself. You owe it to yourself to pay yourself, right? Um, Paying $800 less on your credit card and saving $800 is not a problem. It's actually a benefit. So, with that being said, make sure you take care of yourself and your future by saving before you're paying others. So, with that being said, after that, the formulas kind of do their own thing. Now, if you still have questions after that, I do have a small portion here. This is for anybody who uses credit cards to kind of figure out how you're budgeting those credit cards, right? The bills, this is coming from the formula that we have here. So what's coming out on credit card on the 1st what's coming out of the credit card on the 15th. So those are the formulas that you see here. So on the 1st and the 15th, and then the total is literally just the total for the 1st and the total for the 15th, right? Let's say you spend $600 on groceries, you just change that to 600. Let's say you spend $100 on gas because you guys drive pretty far. It's just gonna make the adjustments. No need to change on the bills. As long as you take care of the first portion, your bills will be taken care of, etc., etc. Now, again, if you have any questions, concerns, or issues when it comes to this budgeting tool, I know it's vast and I know it's complicated when you start it. But once it is started, once you get, this portion right here, right, and then you kind of catch yourself up, right? The first is coming up. Once you catch yourself up, and then you kind of go through like I said, everything up here when it comes to projection, anything from line 32 to line 36 when it comes to projections is just picking up whatever you have at the bottom here, so you don't have to worry about it. It's based on formulas. The formulas feed themselves. Only thing you will have to do is make sure that you insert on payday the exact amounts from these accounts, the exact amounts from these accounts, and then the exact amount that will be coming out. What that'll do over here is tell you where you are going to end at the end of the month or at the end of the pay period, right? So essentially going into the next pay period. All the way at the end, what you need to see in your equity, ending equity, is a trend up. How fast you want to trend up is completely up to your income and your outputs or your expenses, right? So, based on the formulas that we have right now, this guy is going up about $3,000 to $6,000 a check. Now, if he had higher outputs, it'd be a lot less. If he wanted to pay down his credit card faster, it'd be a lot less. So, how quickly you grow is completely based on what you do. But yeah, if you have any questions about this or if you would like this budgeting tool, feel free to hit me up. Again, or as always, like, comment, subscribe, and let's keep taking care of the money that we earn, the hard work that we've done.